Well, good morning. My name's Doug Meadows. I'm the founder, visionary, and hero maker here at David Douglas Diamonds. And I just wanted to welcome you to week 5 of a century of luxury and legacy. And currently I'm in Phoenix, Arizona at the Arizona Biltmore for a jewelry show. And so I thought I'd take advantage of the beautiful accommodations and the beautiful property here to do this week's podcast. Um, and you know, I'm just having a hard time coming out of talking about the Roaring Twenties. There is just so much there, and it's just the birth and beginning of my grandfather's business, and I want to spend. I think this is my last week talking about it, but who knows? As I look into all these different things that were going on that could have affected or did affect my grandfather's business as a business owner, I can only imagine. Unfortunately, I don't really have good documentation on those early days of my grandfather. And so some of it I can only speculate on. Or just envision or imagine what it might have been like. I don't know if I gave you any background on my grandfather, and I don't even know how much of this is accurate. But what I have been told is that he was born in England, and so I do have that documented. And when he was 3 years old, they brought, him and his family came on over to Canada, and they settled in Ottawa, Canada. And it was really neat. Years ago, there was a jeweler I met at we have a big jewelry show in Vegas, and I had the privilege to go to dinner with a gentleman, sat next to him, had a long conversation with him, and he was so inspirational that I was just starting out my business. I just literally invited myself to his store. I called him up, or I think I emailed him and said, can I come and be mentored by you for a few days? And he goes, okay. And I was just shocked, but he was in Ottawa. And so I was telling my dad back then that I was going to do this. He goes, well, did you know your grandfather lived there? And I'm like, I did not. And so I called my aunt, which is our historian of the family, and she sent me a bunch of fun stuff of him living in Ottawa. And then I don't know at what age they left Ottawa, but the next thing I've been told is that he went from Ottawa to Toronto, and that he was a chef in a restaurant, or who knows, he could have been a busboy in a restaurant, but he worked in a restaurant for a season for, I don't know, maybe a year or two. And then from there, came down to Detroit. And so as I look at different events that were going on in the world that time, World War I was ending. And at that time, my grandfather would have been like 14 years old. He's entering the 20s, the Roaring Twenties, when he hit 16. And when you're 16, man, there's nothing that can stop you. I mean, you're unstoppable. Reality really hasn't totally sunk in usually, and you got a lot of big dreams. And but my grandfather also kind of hit in the Roaring Twenties, as I call it the perfect storm, because I mean, the economy was booming. There was just so much going on, exponential growth in all that. And I learned about this gentleman. His name was Charles E. Mitchell, that enters in this time frame. They called him Sunshine Charlie, and he was the president of the National City Bank, which was the largest bank in the U.S. at that time. And Sunshine Charlie was a huge optimist, and he wanted to help. Back then the stock market was only for the rich and elite, and he wanted to make it available to just the average Joe out there working hard. And so he took advantage of his bank and all the multiple locations around the U.S. and he created this. I don't know. Basically, he put everybody in debt. It's like 10% down, and we'll loan you the rest of the money, and you can buy stock. And and all people saw was this opportunity. We got the explosive growth going on in the 20s. We got, cars are everywhere now. You got radio happening. You got, the jazz, and the skyscrapers are being built. I mean, just the different things that are going on there. We had talking movies that just, hit the scene. And so he was able to help people take stock ownership from 500,000 shares all the way up to 10 million shares. And when they were doing this, I mean, people were becoming rich by investing in the stock market, because it was just, escalating every single day. So a small rise, even just a 10% rise in all this, could double your money. And but payday comes someday. And as we enter the beginning of 1929, I don't know, I would imagine people got a little nervous, started selling off some stuff, and good old Sunshine Charlie steps in and influxes a bunch of money into this whole mess, and holds off the rush on selling everything. But then that day came, and in just days, there was $14 billion lost. People lost their homes, lost their jobs. I mean, it was tragic what happened then. But I just, I'm thinking, trying to put myself in my grandfather's shoes during all this stuff, to where he's all excited, man. He just started his business in 1926. He's 22 years old. Those first few years, I can only imagine he did relatively well, because, he got excited from the Metropolitan building. He moved to that Michigan Theater building. I feel like he was chasing that shiny object too. And, I don't know, the closest thing that I have in my lifetime to relate would be in, I think it was 2008 when we had the big recession. That in 2008, by mid-year, I was on track to have my best year ever. And then all of a sudden, it just fell out on us all. And it took a while for it all to recover and stuff. Lately we've been just seeing gold and silver and platinum hitting all-time highs. We've seen gold jump way up, silver way up, and now it's dropped back down, then it jumped back up. And, it's funny, everybody tries to predict what the metal markets are going to do. They always blame it on what's going on here in the U.S. But you got to keep in mind that these metals are traded worldwide almost 24/7. And so it's not, I don't feel like we can control the metal and stuff. And, years ago, when I worked in my dad's shop, we had this guy, his name was Vic Gallatin. And Vic would come in every month or so, and we would buy what we call sizing stock, specific dimensions of gold to be able to size the rings. We'd buy gold wire from him, casting grain, whatever we needed, Vic had it. And then, we when we need to recycle gold or, send it off for refining, Vic would pick it up and take it back to his shop and do it all. We used some, Vic was nuts. He's always smoking a big cigar. His fingers from all the acid that he had to work with all this stuff were always yellow. And, but one day he was in there and I was asking him, I said, hey Vic, do you try to play the market and buy when it's low and sell when it's high? And he goes, nope. He says, I buy every day. He says, I got to get it leveled out. And so early on in my career, I took that advice and I thought, I'm going to just start buying a little bit of gold once a week and saving it. And I was pretty proud of that. I got that going, and then, every fall for a few years, me and my brothers would grab my dad. We'd go up to North Georgia somewhere, get a little cabin, and just hang with him for 2-3 days. And it was a real special time. But, one of our conversations, I was just kind of bragging about, I've been saving up all this gold. And my dad goes, well, why are you saving asphalt? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, he says, in the Bible it tells us that, the streets of heaven are paved in gold. And so I was like, oh, okay. So it kind of gave me a little check and stuff. So it did change my mind a little bit in my perspective on it. But it was just neat. It's always good to get some nice words of wisdom from your dad every now and then. But anyways, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. And from Phoenix, Arizona, which back home it's just frigid cold, and so I'm so glad to be here. Look forward to talking to you next week and seeing what we can discover next week. So thanks. Bye.